What's up, YouTube? Back for part 2 of the big repair. In between last night and tonight, things got a little easier than we...
Don't say easier. It got slightly more optimistic.
Yes. So originally we got down to the alternator and we were thinking that the alternator bracket had to come off.
Which, if you do any research, that is the dreaded job on this. Not that taking apart the entire engine isn't dreaded, but that's the dreaded job on this.
This is 50% of the dread. That would have been the other 50% of the dread.
Yes.
So, in our tired stupor at the end of the first video, we overlooked how simple it was. The alternator just had to turn, and there was...
Yeah, so I had to take the, last night I took the tensioner off and released the belt from the alternator and took the 2 bolts out. There's 2 bolts that mount it into the alternator mounting bracket, and then I moved it aside. But one of the things that when you're tired and you don't think about, I made a mental note that there's a little notch in the mounting bracket, and I thought, in BMW's infinite stupidity and over-engineering, they could not have made it so you had to remove that bracket that leaks oil everywhere, and in fact they didn't. So I came down here late last night, put my hand down in the bottom there, found the one last star bolt, backed it out, sent Patrick a picture, and we celebrated. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like right now. And so if you go down here, there's the mounting bracket there, and so right there, that's the hole. Once you move the alternator out of the way, that's the hole that holds the bottom bolt for the timing chain cover, and I was able to get that off. So that made today's project much better. And a couple other things that I worked on as well is, remember, we couldn't get those bolts off of the valve cover. I ended up putting that back on here kind of loosely, and then I, with a hammer, because someone before had boogered the hole up, I tapped the star bit or the Torx bit onto this and ended up getting it seated well and backed off that bolt. So that worked out really well. So I think we're going to be in good shape to get some of this cleaned up. Look how clean that is.
So going into today now, the name of the game today is putting back together, because it is disassembled to where we need it. A couple things we're going to do differently is we're going to hit the spark plugs with the valve covers off.
Yep.
That should just make life a little easier. Not that you would ever want to remove the valve covers to do the spark plugs.
You don't need to do that.
But if they're off, do the spark plugs and then the valve covers.
Yep.
You have a lot more room.
We're going to put new ignition coils on there as well.
Yep.
But we're going to do that after the valve covers are back on. And the biggest thing is, as we're going to clean everything back up. Clean, clean, clean. Plenty of brake cleaner, plenty of silicone lubricant on seals, plenty of new seals, but everything is getting cleaned and put back together. When you're doing a big $3,000 job like this yourself,
parts are cheap. The big thing here is just the labor, and as you clean it, also keep in mind, so it's $2,700 for BMW to do the repair. It's another $300 for them to clean it. So that puts us at a $3,000 mark, all said and done, plus all the intermittent things we're going to replace that they wouldn't necessarily do.
Yep.
So we'll get our leaks taken care of, get this put back together, and then we'll plan on going to the CV axle, get that taken care of. While we're under there, we got more cleaning to do. There's the plate that all of this oil, for however long it's been dripping, it's just there. And I think a big chunk of what we see when we park it is oil dripping off of that. It's not the fresh oil, because you can feel it's a pool.
Yeah.
With rainwater and everything, it's just dumps.
Nasty. So that's the stiffening plate. So for those of you who are familiar with the 4.4 or the 4.8, it's got a stiffening plate down below there. So we're going to be pulling that stiffening plate off and getting all that cleaned up as well.
And while we're in here, it's oil change time. This is just, you do everything you can all at once, because that's going to be what makes this reliable and daily drivable when this is wrapped up. I think the last thing that's going to be on our to-do list, which we're not quite sure what we're going to do yet, is you tell your wife that when you get the panoramic sunroof, they're notoriously bad, don't use it. Just open up the screen so you can see out and don't ever touch it. So first test drive, she touched it and now it won't close. So that's a problem to solve at the end, but we'll get it taken care of.
Yep.
we're gonna do a little divide and conquer to start this off. I'm gonna hop in and get going on spark plug removal and replacement. Get this old gasket taken off, and you're going to start cleaning.
I'm housekeeping.
He's housekeeping. And if you took note from our other video when we talked about organizing the parts, admittedly, we fell behind on that.
Oh, yeah. As the day went on, weariness set in. Despair.
A big part of that is recognize as you run out of gas, you get sloppier. Nobody can work around that. So we're gonna pay for that, I'm sure, at a couple different points today. Just take your time. We're recharged. We're on the downhill side now. So here's spark plug number 1, right off the bat. That's cooked. My assumption is these are original spark plugs. It's a lower miles. I'm sure owner after owner just didn't do it because nobody had it deep into its life enough to really care about a tune-up.
And if it ran fine.
Yeah, if it runs not noticeably bad. But we do have misfires, so that's probably the problem here. Here we go with the new plugs compared to the old plugs. Now when it comes to spark plugs, they're not an expensive part, but you can get a lot more out of spending a little bit more money on them. So now that we got the plugs replaced, we are cleaning up this surface like we did this side, and good God, look how clean that is. It's so clean. This side's getting there. We're gonna use some magic sauce, also known as brake cleaner.
Get that wet. Just gets it nice and clean. You want to make sure that you got a paper towel down below there so it doesn't get debris down into your engine. As I'm, scraping over where there's not a paper towel, but
Keep the paper towel in the place it's supposed to be. That helps on the bottom there.
motherfucker pointing and telling me where to fucking clean.
Do you want to give me the brush so I can get the good angle on it? Looking for more shit. Need paper towels. Also, ventilation's not important with brake cleaner. You can just pretty much skip that. Just breathe deep.
Okay, I got that soaked, so if you want to do some scrapey on it.
A little bit more in that corner.
Alright, we're gonna carefully put this gasket back in there.
Take 2.
The boy is slowly lowering the gasket into place. There's 2 grommets.
Now to help hold it still, I'm using one of those bottom grommets as a pivot point, so I'm not shaking the entire thing while I find the next one. Because you want to touch as little stuff as possible.
Because you don't want dirt and debris to get in there. And
You can clean it all you want, but there's still shit around.
there we go. Just got that pressed onto that grommet right there. There we go. So that's a grommet that it sits on. There's one more down below there, but we'll be able to get that cover on there now and start to hand tighten those bolts and get them torqued down to spec like this one is.
So we got everything hand tight now on both sides. You can't tell, it's much cleaner, and now we are torquing it to spec, which again, I will make a Google Docs with a table on all your torque specs, so feel free to click on that. Take note that these bolts, there's different specs for what bolt you have. You may not have the same we're using, so that's why we'll do the Google Docs sheet. But take your time, get all the bolts.
Do a cross pattern.
Also, the pain in the ass on the driver's side, it's hard to tell, but there is that bracket, if you remember taking it off, that wire in it. You're gonna need to get the bracket on, but don't put the wire in until after you torque. Otherwise you're just fucking yourself, for lack of a better term. Torque wrenches are a tool that are worth the investment, and if you're doing it yourself, you're saving more than they cost, so.
Way more. For this project, you could buy yourself my entire tool set pretty much. I'm just going through it. I'm just making sure that these are all getting a click on them.
When you're putting it back together, being anal is a good thing. When you're taking it apart, it's also a good thing, but it's easier to be sloppy there than now.
Clean, clean, clean. All right, so that one's done. Now we'll torque the other side down.
Okay, so there's 2 asshole brackets on this side. You've got the big one that we pointed out, and then there's a small one that's on this corner. That's 2 of the bolts. It's hard to see, but again, just remember when you're taking it out, you gotta put it back in. So hand tighten that stuff and do the bolts you gotta do on the brackets. Now, we're gonna start cleaning up the valve covers. We're gonna start with this side because we're sick of doing the easy side first. We're gonna do the hard one now. So get this cleaned up and we'll get our new gasket going. We're learning a lesson here.
I just want to say, my son sometimes hates my "we'll never fucking quit" attitude, because it's 2 in the morning sometimes and he's like, go home, or I need to leave. We were looking for this gasket.
Yeah, so a lesson is watch for this gasket.
For this vacuum pump, and it wasn't on there when we took it off. Well, what happened was it fell off as we were removing it, and it was laying down in some muck. You know, we had searched online, there was nowhere, it wasn't going to be found anywhere, but you know, I'm not inclined, none of us are inclined to reuse a gasket, but this car ain't getting up and running today without this gasket. It's a $50 kit. We're going to put this back on for today. We're going to order the gasket and replace it, but for today, we found the gasket.
Back in business. So now we feel a lot better about that. We're still going to order that. We'll do a short video to prove that we do that. What we're doing here, you need to be able to see everything line up. So that little flappy doodle only wants to go in correctly.
Take two. Time for a pick.
There you go.
Boom. In.
It's hard to see, but there's just a little slit. Yeah, you can see it there. It's that square spot. That's where the flap fits into. And then once it's in there, you can turn it and get it to where you need to bolt it on. Progress.
All right. Pro tip here. So when you got some of these blind bolts that you can't get in, like on the bottom of a pump or something,
Or the awful driver's side timing case cover.
we use this magnet to get a lot of the bolts set in. We're able to get them the rest of the way. The sockets as needed, so once you get them started, you can hand tighten them.
We'll get that on there. And then throw in the timing, or not the timing cover, the valve cover on. We are going to show, because nobody else shows how awful it is, and we don't quite know how awful it is yet.
It's gonna be awful. You know why?
It's because BMW.
Because of these. Try and line up 4 of those while you're trying to put the cover on. It's gonna be terrible.
We got this cleaned up. The new gasket in here, and the gasket kit comes with grommets, which I'm not going to flip this to show you, but you just pop those off, pop the new ones on. I did notice there's a lot of gunk that was built up in the crevice that this new seal sits in. So it took a lot of time with a folded up paper towel, just kind of scooping it bit by bit. I think we're in good shape now to get the difficult side popped on here. What we're doing first is get some disposable zip ties. Zip tie up these wires and stuff that are going to just want to fall into your way. That way you don't have to waste your time trying to fight that, because you're going to be fighting the spark plug boots that we're just about to set in. We're going to set all 4 in and then go for the cover.
All right, Patrick's going to do the honors of trying to get this valve cover on. But anyways, the biggest challenge in taking these off and putting them on is giving yourself enough clearance to clear that plastic piece right there. She's got a big ass, so. Biggest thing is you don't want to bind. There we go, you're clear. It's there, it's kind of falling out. So what we want to do is, before we seat anything down, we're going to just loosely put a couple screws in so she stays in its spot. And then we're going to just double check the gasket all the way around and make sure that this is seating properly and the gasket didn't move anywhere and we're making good contact. So.
There's no easy way to say this, but this is absolutely fucking terrible on this side. It took, what, 5+ attempts?
I'd rather do a fucking timing chain cover all day long and not the valve cover itself, because it sucks.
Yeah, this is miserable. You end up fighting a couple different things. So like I said, you get this stuff zip tied out of the way. Where it was a pain in the ass to take this one out, I don't think that the putting it in wasn't too big of a challenge, except that when you're coming back here and you're going over where that sensor sits, you end up catching that gasket, and there's really no way around it because these hoses keep pushing you further and further toward it. You look at it and you could try to disassemble, but then you're going to have to reassemble around it, and there's no easy way to do that. So the little trick we decided to try,
Boy Genius, he gets all the credit for this.
I thought, you know, what if we loosely put some zip ties that will hold that gasket in place, because it doesn't have to cinch it down and damage the gasket, but we can put them on there loose, and the way it sits in there, it holds that gasket on. So now one of us can put our hand on here, hold it, and then we just clip and pull them out.
Yep.
Free it up, and our gasket's where it needs to be, and this is ready to get tightened down.
That was the way to go. Good job.
So in the infinite bullshit that is the driver's side valve cover, we ran into more problems. It's a really big pain in the ass to get these bottom bolts, because you have taller bolts on top, shorter ones on the bottom. Same size grommet. That doesn't help you in this case. I mean, I'm sure it does leak-wise, maybe, but does not help for the install. So we are taking one of the long bolts, and I'm tightening it down one ahead, and then put a short bolt to the left. That way you're sucking it down, and you just need to catch those first couple threads to get that short one going. But I say that like it's easy. It's not.
Pain in the butt.
Okay, after all of the struggles, we got that torqued back down. We're getting the alternator thrown back on.
That's on.
Good to go there.
Yep.
So now we get all these little connections back together. As far as torquing the valve cover, I would say the most important piece is the way you do it. Work your way from the middle out, going zigzag. It's kind of up to you what you want to do torque-wise. I'll include the specs I have. There's people who just bottom them out. It's kind of up in the air based on what the community says. We decided to bottom out the bolts and then torque them. Alright, so while he's working on getting wires and connections back together on the driver's side, got this cleaned up. There's a little oil that pooled and dripped down. Got that taken care of. The valve cover gasket's in. Got the grommets taken care of. Now we're just doing the spark plug boots like we did on the other side, and we'll get after it. Over here on the easy side, I got my side torqued down. Are you done yet over there?
No.
It's taking so long.
These ignition coils in. I'm climbing the mountain first.
As we learned on the first half of today, don't do the easy side first, because you just fuck yourself. So just for all you purists out there, we're missing a little clamp here, so we're just going to zip tie that. Little progress update. Things are going back together slowly but surely. I mean, the big takeaway, and you can hear it when anyone who actually knows what they're doing talks about working on a car, it really goes back together one way. So if you're taking your time, the wires, they fall into place, and the plugs just fit. You don't got to force it. So right now we're wrapping up putting on the solenoids.
Yep.
So next up, we've got the fuel line reconnected here, and now we're gonna start building back our tray and reconnect our battery cables, get things going there. Just like any good time, when you're all done, take the rubber off. So we're not completely naive. We're only getting what needs to be together to start and run the vehicle in right now. Mm-hmm. We're not buttoning it up, because if we do that, it's not gonna work.
No good.
If we do it, it's gonna be good. Hopefully. And just in case you guys are wondering, you can put this back on without putting the grill back. Because it's up there. There are stupid questions out there.
Alright, moment of truth. We attempt to fire this up. Since we disconnected that fuel line, we want to pressurize it again. So we're going to cycle the fuel pump a couple times. Cycle it again. Want to start it?
Now that we got the headache of all headaches, besides the potential alternator bracket if we ever have to do that, but we got the engine wrapped up, it started, we cleared codes, we had some goofy stuff pop up, but that could be because we took the battery apart, a lot of things came disconnected and put back together, so.
Probably should have pulled the negative before we did all that, but hey, amateur hour.
But at least we put the condoms on the positive, so there's that.
We were able to reuse them because this time we were running out of gloves, so.
Yeah, we have quite the shopping list just to get supplies back after this endeavor. But now we get to have some fun. We got the quick jacks going up. We're gonna get this CV axle that we noticed when we did all of our front end work. That boot's ripped. We're gonna get that replaced. Quick walkthrough on how we're gonna do it. It's not that difficult. If you watch the front end video, you can figure it out. Take your bracket and just remove the entire brake caliper off. You've got a 36mm nut on the axle. We're gonna pop off the ball joints and flip it back, so we can just pull out that axle. No big deal there. We're gonna do an oil change on this because that's just good measure. This thing's been leaking oil and using not necessarily the best oil, so we're gonna get that caught up. Fresh fluids, Fresh CV axle. I think this is going to be a daily driver at the end of the day.
It could be. We're close.
All right, so I know we said we were going to do the ball joints, but here's the thought process. You've got fresh ball joints if you did those. Now, okay, rewind. If you're going to do all of it, including the CV axle, just pop the ball joints because you're already going to be popping them off. But we had just done that, and rather than disturb all of these ball joints that we just put in, we used some muscle and got these 2 bolts on the strut out, and then we just lean this forward and you're good to go there. So CV axle just slides out. And now the only reason we were doing this is we saw a tear in the boot here. Now if you want a little reference on good or bad, that's the old one. That's the new one. It's a much sturdier setup. I mean, this one, it's a limp dick. The other one's rock hard and good to go. So we're gonna get that put in. They really just slide in and slide out once you get it enough room to work with.
So the one thing that you want to do is we took the stiffening plate out, and we'll show that after this. But when I had got behind this with this pry bar, there's a little lip on it, and you hit it, and it knocks it out of that groove, and it comes right out. So you want to support the rotor with the jack. Tip it forward. That allows you to free the front. And then I was able to take, once I got the stiffening plate off, I take this pry bar and punch at it, and Patrick was able to receive it.
And while we're on the topic of the stiffening plate, we wanted to take that off anyways to get things nice and clean. Because here's the oil leak, guys. This is however long oil's been leaking under this car, just been building up, and there's shit caked all over it. So we're gonna get that cleaned up, and all of this really comes together to just being a good baseline to see what's next, because there's gonna be more issues, but now we know where to look and we're gonna have visibility again. So status update while we let the oil settle so we can check it. She's damn near put back together. Got the wheels back on. CV axle is taken care of. We got the plate underneath put back. Everything's cleaned up and nice. Now we're getting the tools set up since we took out and used
Every single tool.
every single tool that we got. It's been used and abused today. I'm drowning oil. But she's almost there. We just gotta do some brainstorming on this sunroof here. She's full of oil, but we got to get this sunroof taken care of. So we are bringing it into the dealership, seeing if there's anything the dealership can do for us. Tip of the day, don't use your sunroof. You don't need to, you have windows. So we've checked the fuses in the glove box, and those all seem fine. The fuses in the trunk seem unrelated. And now we're working with some silicone spray and a pick tool, trying to maybe work a little magic on the wedges that you can see tilt the window up. All right, so we got this back one down by popping out. There's a couple hex screws on both sides, but now we've got a broken piece in this track that we think is, that we hope is what's stopping this one from shutting all the way. So we took those screws out, and I mean, really it's just a matter of you wedged in here and push this back so this would go down all the way.
Yep.
The big question though is it sealed? Or at least is it to a point where the drainage system involved in this will do our job? So we're gonna take this bottle of water. Let's pick the worst spot. I mean, it's pretty uniform, but
This corner. You're making a freaking mess all over my garage floor.
better than the oil.
And it's better than in the car.
What have we got in the car?
Nothing. There.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that aside from those screws, this was probably already somewhat
Broken.
at that point.
Yeah, it was broken. So we'll keep the screws. We'll do some more research.
For now, it's sealed and it will not be moved from this point.
If we had 1 million subscribers, we'd ask the BMW mechanics that watch our channel and cringe. What's the solution?
Yeah, do we just keep dumping bottles of water on it and taking parts out, or is there an official fix?
But for now, we're good. Oh, it's been a long day.
It's a long day, but we're hoping that she's done leaking oil. I mean, this was the biggest one that I've done on a car, and it is definitely difficult, but it's not impossible to do yourself, because it's, at the end of the day, it's a simple fix.
Yeah.
It's just meticulous and really fucking time consuming.
Really time consuming.
But this thing's got a whole new front end. The CV axle's done. The moonroof's shut. The gaskets are all taken care of now.
Oil's changed.
Oil's changed. Drivable vehicle now.
Yep. Well, we're gonna see. We're gonna take it for a test drive.
We'll take it for a test drive, and if you don't see more after this, it worked. Hit subscribe, hit like, share. We really appreciate it. If there's another clip after this, it's gonna be a lot of bitching. So we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, catch us next time.
All right. We're getting the car washed.
This
This might be
might be a terrible way to end our weekend.
it's not good.
It's either okay or it's bad.
Ooh, first pass. I'll take that. Just need those brushes to spin up. You know what the $11 wash gets you?
No.
The hub scrub. You know what your hubs needed?
A scrubbing.
Yep. What a cheap bastard.
Look at the wife out there with a toothbrush.
Punishment for doing that in Sunroof.
You do me dirty, I do you dirty.
I think we'll be good if that thing buzzes over the top. No hub scrub for you.
Are you ready? You sure you're ready?
Money!
Yeah!
Woo! That's a good deal right there.
We can breathe a little sigh of relief.
Yeah. Kick ass.